Your father works very hard for his money, and you waste it all on records.
Okay, we're going to start because it's 11 o'clock. We're supposed to start at 11 o'clock. So this panel is a lot of like a Seinfeld episode, because its meaning that we were given is very confused as to what this is about, but we will focus it on something very interesting, I promise you. So let me introduce our panelists here, in no particular order. So Jay Millar, this is Jay Millar over here with his amoeba bag. Taking his seat. So Jay is a 20-year plus veteran in the music industry, having spent time with Polygram, BMG, Sony, Universal, and United Record Pressing. He currently runs the national office of Sundazed Music and Modern Harmonic, early pioneers and leaders in the music reissue business. In addition to Jay's work in the music, he's also hosts a weekly radio show in Nashville's local low-power radio station WXNA. In his current role with Sundazed and Modern Harmonic, he works on all aspects of music, most projects, from locating the artist, masters, and art, finding the right designer or art restoration expert, to developing the marketing plan and launch strategy. So he is involved in top to bottom. And what is Bob doing these days, if you're doing all of this?
Oh, good, it is. I'm just tapping on it. Bob is still, running the show and still very involved. He's texted me about 10 times this morning.
Right.
But really he's focusing on what he loves to do best, which is mastering the records and making sure everything we put out sounds as great as it can.
Okay, this is Chad Kassem over here. How much time do you have? Because I could probably talk about Chad for an hour. I've known Chad for decades. Chad has gone from selling LPs out of milk crates, that's how he started, to owning quality vinyl pressing, one of the world's finest pressing plants. Along the way, he founded the online music and equipment seller Acoustic Sounds, the new music and reissue label Analogue Productions that includes more than 500 titles, almost all mastered from original analog tape. Chad also owns Blue Heaven Studios, a desanctified church that's a recording studio and houses the Mastering Lab, the late Doug Sax's legendary mastering system. Among Chad's, of all the things Chad has done, the thing that people don't talk about that I think is the most important is his Alan Lomax-like championing of less than well-known but equally worthy blues artists and recording them the way they deserve to be heard. There's a whole catalog of blues albums from artists you may not have heard about, blues artists that are beautifully recorded, and the last time a lot of these guys got to record. I think that's one of Chad's greatest achievements of many. Cameron Schaefer is right there. Cameron is the head of music and brand for Vinyl Me Please, recently named one of the Fast Company's top 10 most innovative music companies in the world. Overseeing music, content, and brand strategy, he's helped VMP become the world's premier record club with over 30,000 paying subscribers and an innovative high-impact partner to artists, labels, and managers. In the process, he has led reissue projects with artists such as Fiona Apple, Wilco, Main Source, Panda Bear, and Arctic Monkeys, as well as new release project with St. Vincent, Moses Sumney, Glass Animals, and more. A lot of animal people. But no, you didn't do the animals yet. No reissue of the animals. Okay. So he's also partnered with HBO, Sonos, Ace Hotel, MasterCard, and BMW, where Cameron's understanding of culture, marketing, and tech were critical to ensuring their success. Previous to Vinyl Me Please, Cameron started a popular Tumblr music blog, Vinyl Plus Cocktails, while serving as a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. He lives outside Denver, Colorado with his lovely wife, 3 kids, and dog. That's an amazing mix of things, I will say. Any of you guys fly a plane? You're losers. Okay, so Josh Bizar. This is Josh, next to Chad. Josh is Vice President of online retail powerhouse musicdirect.com. He oversees day-to-day operations and also runs the mobile Fidelity record lab, one of the world's most famous and highly regarded reissue labels, which started decades ago, specializing in audiophile quality mastered from original analog tape reissues, including limited edition one-step records. The catalog is rich with titles from Elvis Costello, Bob Dylan, Miles Davis, Simon & Garfunkel, and hundreds of others. He also oversees production of one of the most beautiful high production value paper catalogs that you'll ever get. It's a big, thick, beautiful catalog, and it's one that keeps music lovers and audiophiles glued to their toilet seats, sometimes for days. So that's our panel. And I'm going to sit down here. Maybe I won't be able to sit here. Speak very loudly, but there we go. So this is kind of a diffuse panel because it's new business models filling the vinyl pipeline. So what we've got here is two guys that are involved in audiophile limited edition products. And we've got a gentleman over here who's involved in a subscription service. And that's a whole different model, but it's also a limited kind of thing. It depends on how many subscribers you get. And then Jay is involved in a label that does a wide variety of reissues, some of which are very esoteric, because Bob has very esoteric tastes. And Bob will say, well, I want to release this record no one's ever heard of, and I don't care if it sells 10 copies or 100 copies. That's the cool thing about Sundazed. He'll champion groups you never heard of, and maybe after you hear him, you say, wow, how come I didn't know about that? That's cool. So these are all different kind of business models. So the first thing I want to talk about with everybody here, and this is something I discovered just the other day in talking to some manufacturers. You know, what happened in the record business in the 60s, any of you are old enough to remember, jackets used to be beautiful, they were paper on cardboard, the records had beautiful labels, and they were heavy pressings. And then around 1970, the business suits got involved, and the first thing they did was say, we can come out with cheap packaging, we can put out a short pack, where it just doesn't require paper on cardboard, it's much cheaper to make. And any of you who bought those records in the 60s, you realize that they all fell apart. They didn't look as good, it cheapened the experience, then the records got thinner and thinner, and we all know what happened. That is starting to happen again, and that's very disturbing to me, and it should be disturbing to everybody here, because this is an experience that we're selling as well as a product. And we cannot let, well, we can make it cheaper and make more money become the driving force, because we'll all be less afford. I'm not going to mention the brand or the record, but a very well-known group, maybe you'll figure it out. They took this box off the market, and for no reason, because it's like printing money, and I asked an individual from the label, why was this taken off the market? And he said, well, because it was too expensive, the margin wasn't high enough. It'll come back out, and we're going to use a less expensive packaging to do it. That is the wrong attitude to have in this business. It's okay to have $20 records, but not for packages like that. Anyway, these guys do very expensive records, both of them, and they're more expensive to produce. So what I want to know from you, Chad, first is, you sell expensive records, what do the customers say, and how difficult is it for you to sell a $50 record when the same record might be in the bin for $20?
Well, I guess we're not having too much trouble, you know, because we keep having to repress them, and you know, our customers want quality. You know, they don't really care. They'd rather pay for quality and get whatever it costs to get what they want. They want the best. So, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about cost and things are too expensive, or I think some of the people that are saying that have no idea of what it costs the manufacturers to make these records. You know, if they did, they wouldn't. Well, they'd be more educated, and they wouldn't say some of the things they're saying.
Tell people what the difference is between making a $20 version of a particular album and making a $50 version. What is the difference?
Well, I guess I could start backwards with the jacket. You know, I mean, you could do direct to board. You know, that's 50 or 60 cents. You know, and then again, it's the jacket you're talking about not liking. You know, it's thin. I mean, it's a jacket. You know, and it's decent, but it's not the highest quality. Now, the highest quality jacket would be, you know, the tip-on direct to board, and that could be, you know, $2 to $3 a piece, and it's a big jump. You know,
that's your cost.
Yeah, our cost. Yeah, and you know, the artist got to get paid. You know, you got to master, you got to play, you got to press. You know, there's songwriting. There's just so many costs involved. But I mean, it's like if you know. We're into doing the highest quality. That's the only way we know how to do it. You know, from using the original master on down.
And how difficult is that becoming? I mean, it was easy in the early days when the major labels said, well, vinyl, who cares? You can have it for But now it's not like that.
Well, it's two things. It's harder to license because they're wanting to do it themselves now, which is fine. And the other thing is getting the master tapes from, we always get the master or we don't do it, but you can see that's getting a little bit harder, you know what I mean, to get. But, you know, the way I feel is like the major labels, they can put out their own record, they can do the $25 version, the $20 version, and let us do what it takes to make the best version. And we'll sell them both. And I mean, Acoustic Sounds and Music Direct will sell both the major label and ours. So it doesn't really compete. You know, you're selling it to two different markets. And so basically, I guess there's a lot of other costs involved, but you know, to do things right, everybody knows it costs money. You can't put out a high quality product for little money.
So Josh, what's your experience been with putting out records that are costly? You're doing a lot of double 45s.
Yeah, the double 45 phenomenon has taken place because all the major labels want to do everything themselves, and they do not want to see duplicate product in the marketplace at similar price points. So, you know, if we're going to get artists like Bob Dylan or Simon & Garfunkel or Miles Davis, which they're of course doing standard vinyl on those currently, they're going to insist that we do 45 RPM to differentiate from their product. And the time involved in manufacturing these records and cutting them and doing everything that the Mobile Fidelity has done for the past 40 years is super costly. And this has been really fascinating to hear people talk about, you know, how important packaging is. And, you know, we came from an area where the most important part was the sonic quality of the record, making sure the record really paid tribute to the artist and the work of art that was burned into the grooves of that record. And hearing a lot from everyone here about how important it is to have the jacket look a certain way and all that, you know, it really did affect me. And I'm taking a lot home from this conference. If you'll indulge me for just a second, just to see the camaraderie here at this conference is so inspiring. 30 years ago when Music Direct started, when Mobile Fidelity was started, when Analog Productions begun, there was nothing like this. We had to learn how to market our records, manufacture our records, license our records, and do it all by ourselves. And all you younger companies that are either making records or starting small record labels, selling to independents, or even helping with the marketing. It's just so inspiring to see how everyone is so willing to help all the companies here. It's really, this has been an eye-opening experience for me, and I'm pretty grateful for this conference.
Your business model, which is obviously different, and how you started it and how you've grown it into the size that it is now.
Yeah, so we run a monthly vinyl subscription. So people domestically pay $29 a month, which includes shipping. And then they're given a special edition record. We used to say limited, but then as it grew, I think after like 5,000 subscribers, we stopped calling it limited because it didn't feel limited. But we try to do a mix of reissues of classic albums, or stuff that's a little off the beaten path, as well as some new releases as well, and look at just different ways that we can make the package stand out. We definitely serve a different audience from, you know, some of the more like audiophile labels. It's a lot younger, I think, like mostly 20s and 30-somethings. A lot who either have just gotten into vinyl in the last few years or maybe have been collectors for a while, but are looking, I guess, for us from a curation and discovery standpoint. And also I think it is interesting on the packaging, because I think one thing in terms of how we grew, our customers, a lot of them have never experienced any sort of physical music. A lot of them are, I think we were really lucky in that myself and Matt, who was up here a little earlier, we were kind of our own target market because we were pretty new into vinyl as well, and so we kind of built the company around like what we were wanting, and it helped a lot when it came to figuring out who to target, you know, and marketing and stuff like that. But there was this feeling of like we all grew up in the Napster generation, and you know, the CDs were just kind of starting to like wind down as I was really getting into music, and Napster became a thing. And I remember there was this rush of like feeling like all of a sudden you could just load up, you know, hard drive after hard drive with music. And I think there's a whole generation that did that and realized like kind of how empty that was at the end of the day. Sitting there, you know, with terabytes of music that you actually had no intention of ever playing. And so I think there's this generation that we're kind of serving, which is now experiencing physical music and the fulfillment of not only, you know, owning your music, but also the experience around it and having something tactile. I think there's been a few people who have commented on that I think there's a trend with younger people wanting to break away from their screen, and I think a lot of people think it's like young people are addicted to their screens, and there's certainly some of that, but I think in some ways like super digital natives are being the first to like say, I want to step back off of social media. I can see how it's becoming toxic, and so I think we see a lot of people who are looking at vinyl as like a way to get out of that.
So how did you promote and publicize your service?
Early on, it was completely bootstrapped, so we didn't have much of a marketing budget, so we wanted to make the product such that people would naturally want to share it. And so we do a lot of color vinyl pressings. We see that like on social media, when people get our packages, they're more likely to share it on social media, on Instagram, everything if it's a beautiful package.
So you did it more with social media than with traditional advertising?
Correct, yeah. We did a lot of social media work and just trying to build word of mouth among that community, and then later on started adding in, you know, digital advertising on Facebook and different platforms.
What happens when someone gets a record that you are giving them to, and they don't like it? They go, hey man, I can't listen to this. Then what happens? Does that happen?
Yeah, so I mean, it does happen. We started out, our model was just we're going to pick one record a month, and you don't have any choice in the matter, and so if you don't like it, you can cancel, but this is the record you're getting. And over time, I've evolved it to give a little bit more choice, and so now we have 3 different subscriptions now. So we have kind of our original flagship, which is Essentials, that's all genres, and then we have a rap and hip hop subscription as well as classics, that's all jazz, blues, and soul. So now there's a little choice there, and then now when we announce the record, there's about 2 weeks before it ships, and within those 2 weeks, members have the ability to swap for something from our archive. And so, again, there's not really an opportunity if you just get the record and you're like, I don't like the music, but we give enough opportunity beforehand to hopefully the subscriber gets something they want.
Of course, everybody's bought a lousy record anyway that they thought they might like and they don't like, so it's not that big a deal. Yeah. So Jay, so Sundazed, and you've been involved in this for a really long time. When I remember when Bob was starting to do his vinyl reissues, there was almost nobody else doing vinyl reissues. It was a very small group of people. So that business has changed because now everybody's doing it. How has that changed what Sundazed is doing?
It's changed things quite a bit. I mean, when we first got into things, Bob was able to get quite a bit done just from his relationships with the labels and things, and we still get a lot done with that. But I mean, there were times when, they would come to us with you got a couple Bob Dylan titles. Do you want these ones? And and initially it was in going and asking for that format, we'd kind of get laughed at. And then say, and can we get it in mono? And we'd get laughed at again, and they all thought they were nuts, and they would give it to us at very reasonable rates. Now we're certainly, when it's the things with the majors, it's once been mentioned, which is in many cases they want to keep it for themselves. And, we're experiencing a lot of where they're taking back their titles, which I can't blame them for.
I was going to ask you, so you have a deep catalog of stuff that came from Sony being made. Is that stuff still in print, or do they take that?
It's a mix. It's a mix. Like, we still have some, staying with, say, Dylan or Johnny Cash, we still have some titles from their catalog in print. There's some that they've taken back, but it's, you know, that's always been kind of our calling card anyway, is just the, you know, those iconic records that get people into the door. And I like that you pointed out that we focus on the esoteric in a lot of aspects, because those are the things we enjoy more. Those are the things where, you know, we're going to sell you know, far fewer number than we're going to sell on a Dylan title, but there's going to be a lot more margin, and in a lot of ways it's a lot more fulfilling, because we're typically going to you know, to artists, direct to artist, or to the artist's estate, and a lot of times you're finding people who are just ecstatic to be getting money, who've maybe never gotten $1 for, you know, in their careers before.
It sounds like what Bob is doing now is very similar to what Little Steven is doing with the Underground Garage, where you're finding these esoteric groups, a lot of punk bands and sort of Pacific Northwest, you know, not the Kingsmen, but third-tier Kingsmen, and giving people an opportunity to hear that music that got passed by. It's a very cool thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, just stumbling upon things. Like, we recently made a partnership with an estate of a gentleman who made a couple dozen 60s film scores, from anything from horror films to early pornography, to like spy films, but all this all done with a 22-piece orchestra and recorded phenomenally. Like, yes, Mr. Peter's Pets, a nudie cutie with a 22-piece orchestra. But stuff like that's amazing, and suddenly we're finding that family, and they're like, our dream when we call these people, you know, we always ask, and it's, you know, it's probably like the, you know, the kid at Wendy's, like, would you like to try our, you know, and they're always greeted with the no. We're always asking any chance there's like a box of tapes in the attic? And we rarely get the yes, but when we do, it's the gold mine. And that was the case with this gentleman, and then his family kept all the original tapes and all the outtakes and everything. You know, even the paperwork was meticulous. So it's that kind of stuff that really excites us, and we know it's really good, so we know that other people are going to be excited about it too. But not to blab on for too much. This was a Sony one, but what you were saying with the ones that didn't get enough notice maybe the first time around, I think the one a lot of people associate us with most is Skip Spence and the LP Or, because it was notoriously underappreciated when it came out, and I don't think it was anything different than what we're doing with anything else. It was just something that we liked, that we knew deserved to be out when it was reissued in '99. And, you know, we were at that time able to find a bunch of unreleased cuts, and it was something about that time, and, you know, myself included, not working for Sundazed at the time, discovered Skip Spence at that time, and that ended up being probably the best seller we've ever had, you know, above the Dylans, above, you know. And then this past Friday, we put out a 3 CD set of Skip Spence, is in a weird, like, basically with Sony, because that one is a Sony-owned title, and them chasing some Bob Dylan masters. They found 2 more hours of unheard tape from Skip Spence, and we're like, hey, can we get that? And so we're excited to have that out on CD, and the LP is coming.
Do you have a way to direct market to the people that have already bought the old Skip Spence reissues? Is this, you have a database of your customers, or do you just...
Yes and no. I mean, we like to think that they just follow us. You know, I think there's a lot of brand loyalty to Sundazed in general, where people have a good idea and trust that if they don't know it, they can trust what's on the sticker. If they like psych music and it's Sundazed and it says psych on the sticker, they trust it. there's a lot that just pay attention to us. So when we post the things on our site or email blasts, and it just kind of feels like all of them are there. And we're launching our new label too, Modern Harmonic, which is our real focus right now, which is where we're getting a lot more esoteric and, as the name implies, a bit more modern, and relaunching our garage label, Beat Rocket, as well.
You had that label you had before, right?
Yeah, Beat Rocket was because initially Sundazed was not all vinyl, and in a certain extent it was trying to, initially it was partly about getting stuff that was never available on CD out on CD. It was, filling a lot of those holes of the stuff that was too small for the labels to put out on CD. But Beat Rocket was launched initially just to prove that Bob could do a 100% vinyl label. And it just so happened that everything that came out on it was garage rock. So we've reactivated, that label, that imprint, and put out things like the Detroit Garage Band. We put out recently the Debutantes, which was oddly another one of those, we've got a bunch of tape in the attic, that was kind of special, but yeah.
So I'll tell some of you young people a funny story. So when I first met Bob, back in the days when there wasn't much vinyl, Bob lived upstate New York, and MCA, which became Universal, had a pressing plant in upstate New York. And I went to visit the pressing plant, and Bob had whipped that pressing plant into really good shape. And they were pressing really good 180-gram records. It wasn't a big plant, but it was working, and it was really great. And then, all of a sudden, the bean counters decided to close it. It was making money, and it was employing a number of people in upstate New York that was a depressed economy. I mean, there was only good things about having this pressing plant there. There were no bad things about it whatsoever. But they could sell it, they could close it down, get rid of the presses, sell them, and have a good bottom line number for 1 year, and make the bean counters seem like heroes. And I went to all the people I could go to there, and I said, listen, you don't understand what's going to happen. This vinyl, it's going to come really way back in a couple of years, and then you have a pressing plant here. You're going to have to stand online like everybody else to get your records pressed. And they looked at me like, who is this idiot? Well, my wife does that too, but that's a whole other story. And they closed that pressing plant down. It was like one of the stupidest things that I've ever witnessed. And it was like, it was a freight train, and you couldn't stop them because they knew what they were doing. And they didn't. Okay, so let's get back to, I'm really interested in your model in terms of how you decide what you're going to release. So what have you done in the last couple of months, and what's coming up?
Yeah, so recently, I guess this month, we just announced our different features for the 3 different subscriptions. So for Essentials, we're reissuing Townes Van Zant's first album, For the Sake of the Song, working with Fat Possum on that. And then for our Classic subscription, Donald Byrd, Fancy Free, doing that with Blue Note. And then for rap and hip hop, a kind of younger, a newer artist from Chicago named Saba, who had a great album that came out earlier in the year, but he's independent and didn't have a vinyl press, so we were able to work directly with him to put out the record. But past ones, we just reissued Feist, Let It Die, and worked with Feist on that. And that's a great example, I guess, of what we try to do is not only provide something of value to our members, but also we love getting to work directly with the artist whenever possible. And we've found that lots of times label or management can sometimes try to put up some walls in between like us and the artist, and I get why they're doing it most of the time. But when we're able to actually sit down and say, we were able to do it with Feist and say like, of this album, what did you not like about it when it first came out? And are there things that you would want to have like updated when we do this reissue? And it was great because she said, I want to get it remastered. I want this person to remaster it. I want new album art. My friend's an artist and I want her to do it. And so it was great because not only could we come out with something that was unique, but we knew that it was something that she was proud of.
And that reissue is all over Facebook and all. I mean, I get that every day from people. This is coming out, and that's one of those titles. And there's a lot of titles like that you can do like that. And so, who does your pressing? At various places, or do you have one place?
We do it primarily at GZ. We do some at MRP, And then we have online stores where we do more limited stuff, and for a lot of those titles it's RTI and various plans in the US, but yeah, mainly GZ.
So you guys in the audiophile, those of us in the audiophile side of things, most of us stuck with records because we know that they sound the best. There's no argument about it. The record sounds better, and we prove it all the time to skeptics. And so to come to this and meet a lot of people who, its sound quality is okay, it counts for something, but it's not like the driving force for us was sound quality. So coming here, how does this affect you, knowing that people are saying, well, we love vinyl, but the sound quality, but that's cool.
Well, I guess now that we own a
That's right.
now that we own a pressing plant, we'll press for anybody, So a lot of times the music might not be my favorite music.
Well, you can't say, well, you can't press on our plane because we don't like your music. That would be the authoritarian personality, really.
Yeah, and I'm real opinionated about the music I like. So, but sometimes, but mostly, we like the music we press. I mean, everybody likes the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix. So it's, but I mean, we're happy to see this. I know you are. I mean, Michael's been since 1986. I've been knowing Michael, and we've been champion, and supporting vinyl.
And it wasn't easy in 1986, let me tell you.
Yeah, there was a magazine called CD Review, and all the editors used to try to, argue with Mike and try to make him look foolish, and he always just stood his ground.
Not so hard to do that, Chad. But the funny thing is, the guy from CD Review wrote these nasty things about me, personal attacks and whatever. And then about 6 years after all that brouhaha, he sent me a letter. He said, "Don't publish this, please." But you know what? I realized you were right.
What's his name?
The record sounds so much better. I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to answer the question you asked Cameron about what we have coming up, which is interesting. And we're working right now with our partners in pressing and vinyl with Don from RTI and Casey from TPC Neotech, which I've heard so many of you guys mention these guys. They're critical to helping us manufacture the very finest records we can make. But we're currently making something very new and exciting, which is a brand new vinyl formula. And it is so unbelievably expensive, but when you get to hear how quiet the vinyl formula is, I think it's really going to turn a lot of heads. And by lowering that noise floor, it's going to elevate things that were deep in the grooves of the records that you have never heard before. And the very first title that's coming out is Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, and the test pressings have just been illuminating. I mean, there are subtle details that, everyone's heard this album hundreds of times.
And you, in fact, reissued it once already.
We did.
This time you think you got it right? We're charging $50 for it and it wasn't right? That's disgraceful.
This was just a single LP. It was $30. This is so far and away better than that, and that was 20 years ago. There have been so many advances in the cutting technology and everything, and I think everyone has the opportunity to make some of the best sounding vinyl that's ever been made. And the conference the panel that's after this, I feel is the most important one, which is just talking about quality. And it's been so refreshing to hear all these new pressing plants badge themselves with the Q on their chest of quality, because without making quality, quiet, flat pressings, we're not going to have jobs to go to the next day.
That's the truth.
This is a really, really serious issue, and I am thrilled to see quality being talked about so much here.
So Chad, you've concentrated on, how many people here went to the listening room downstairs? How many of you thought that was really interesting and sounded really great? Right? How many of you heard his Axis Bold as Love that he I've been playing that record since it came out, and I have every pressing that's ever been done of it. And I heard things on that yesterday I never heard. I never heard some of those instruments sound like that. The tuning of the drums, and a whole bunch of things. So what I find is that there are things in these tapes and things in these records that the better your system, the more you'll hear that you never heard of them. The more they can change the technology to make better mastering and better pressings, the more you can enjoy these classic records. And so it's very sad that people are consuming music as low resolution MP3s and thinking that they're really hearing what the musicians intended and are really getting, what they're getting is a bare outline of what's there, and then they try to fill it in with their brains, but what their brain says is, read a book, cook a meal, do something, but don't pay attention to this because it's not really going to do anything for you. So Chad, do you have anything coming up that's exciting?
Well, we have a lot of things, and there's so many I can't starting to forget them, but we do a lot of classical records. We sell a lot of classical. We're doing the Royal Ballet on 45, which is for people that collect classicals, a real big thing.
What is a good classical title sell? Would you divulge that? Like that title? An original of that title goes for like $5,000 or something.
Not quite, but it's getting up there. So that particular title, I'll probably sell 2,000 or 3,000 of the 33, and the 45 will probably be $150. So if I sell a couple thousand of those, I'll be pretty happy. And I believe it will, because it sounds better than the original. The original is like $2,000, so for $150 is really reasonable. But the big thing is the new UHQR of Axis Bold as Love. We're going to make 5. I guess this thing's talking about limited edition, so you can't get more limited than this. We're doing 1,500 monos. Those are already sold out, pre-sold out. We're doing 5,000 stereos. 4,000 of those are sold.
So if you didn't make it a limited edition, if you just said, I'm going to sell, would you sell more? Or do you think that there's a frenzy involved in making it a limited edition?
Well, over time you would sell more. But the mono, people, when they saw it was only 1,500, people knew to buy that. And then people...
The mono people, it sounds very scary.
Yeah.
Mono people.
So they knew to jump quick, and so those sold faster than the stereo, but we only have like 1,000 more to sell. So by the time we press it, after you review it, we'll sell the rest.
It's very scary.
Really, and hopefully it gets the famous Fremer 1111.
How about reviewing a $30,000 tone arm that I reviewed, and the guy sold 70 of them off of my review, and that's a scary thing, because if people didn't like it, I'd be in a lot of trouble. But everybody involved said, "Thank you, because this is the greatest thing I've ever heard."
Well, yeah. Then we're doing Roger Waters' Amused to Death at 45. We're doing Pink Floyd on SACD, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and Animals.
You're mining the classic music catalog. Have you any ideas about new music that's well recorded that you might want to reissue and do a better job with? Or do you think sticking with the classics is a good way to go?
Well, we're talking, Shelby Lynn wants to cut a director disc, so that'll be pretty new music.
Yeah.
There'll be new songs, be live to the lacquer. We bought Doug Sack's mastering facility, so it's inside of the church. So we'll be able to cut lacquers of new music. We're going to do that in February, I think.
So your business model says if you sell X thousand of a record, that's a success. You can make money doing that.
I mean, anymore, you got 1,000 is like the minimum. It's the minimum. You could order jackets. It's the minimum that we'll press 1,000 records for people. So, it makes a lot of sense. And if you do 1,000 or something, you're not going to really lose.
Right, but your Doors box set, that was very costly to get the tapes. At first they said, oh, well, the tapes can't be used. It has to be done from, Jack Holzman and Bruce Botnick cut from 192 24-bit files, and that's as good as it's going to get. And the tapes can't be used. So Chad opens says, well, listen, what is it going to take? And he finally got the tapes, and the difference is mind-blowing. So,
Well,
you make money on that?
oh yeah. So,
Can you talk numbers?
we've sold, well, we did them breakouts and the box set. So, I'm not quite sure, but we sold over 1,000. No, we sold probably maybe 5,000 LA Womans, but definitely we sold more than that between the box and the breakout. Anyway, it was interesting, but it was very successful.
And Josh, you got any war stories like that to share with us?
There are a lot of war stories, some that I can't really talk about because
Those are the most
it affects our relationships with the major labels. But we have so many situations where we're trying to get records out from a very high-profile artist, and sometimes it's the artist management, their estates, or even the artists themselves. That, when you're waiting 2 years for a famous guitar player to get off the road to sit and listen to your test pressings to give him the stamp of approval, it can get frustrating and it's very costly. And then sometimes some of these artists have 40-year-old turntables that haven't replaced their stylus since 1972, and there's